Dane told every client and every staff member that I was just a trolley pusher who signs checks. Megan is now begging me to come back. But there is something on those bank statements that even my solicitor didn't expect. And Dane has no idea I found it. I want you to imagine something. You build a business with your best mate. You trust him with the keys, the clients, the accounts, everything. Then you come home from a 3-day rotation to Tokyo, still smelling like recycled cabin air. And you find out he's been sleeping in your fiance's bed and telling everyone you're just the idiot who signs the checks. That was my life 6 months ago. My name's Callum. I'm 34. I'm a flight attendant based out of Perth. And this is how I burned my best friend's world to the ground with a manila folder. Dane and I met at Curtin University when we were 21. He was doing business management. I was chasing aviation. We clicked immediately. Friday nights at the pub on Rokeby Road, footy at Subiaco Oval on Saturdays, the kind of friendship where you'd toss someone your car keys without a second thought. For over a decade, he was the person I called first. Good news, bad news, didn't matter. Dane picked up. By 2021, I've been flying international routes for a major Australian carrier for nearly 8 years. I had savings, I had contacts at 3 airlines, and I had this idea I couldn't shake, a boutique travel consultancy. Not one of those big chain shops, something small and sharp, corporate group bookings, curated itineraries, the kind of service where you actually know your client's name. I found a little office on Hay Street in Subiaco, $1,200 a month. Street frontage. Enough room for 3 desks and a coffee machine. I called Dane that night. 50-50, I said. You run the floor while I'm flying. I bring in the airline deals and the high-value clients remotely. We split everything down the middle. He didn't even hesitate. Mate, I'm in. We called it westbound travel. And for the first 18 months, it worked. It really worked. I'd negotiate group fares from 30,000 feet, send Dane the details, and he'd close the paperwork from the office. I handled maybe 40% of our revenue through aviation contacts alone. Dane managed the shop front, hired a couple of part-time staff, dealt with walk-ins. On paper, it was a perfect split. On paper. My fiancée, Megan, was 31, physiotherapist with a practice in Nedlands. We'd been together 5 years, engaged for 8 months. She was warm, funny, the kind of person who remembered your coffee order after hearing it once. Megan and Dane got along well. Too well, as it turned out. Whenever I left for a rotation, Dane would check in on her, bring takeaway over, watch a movie, keep her company. That's what he told me, and I thought it was decent of him. My mate looking after my girl. My mom lives down in Mandurah. She's 71, and she doesn't miss a thing. Every time I mentioned Dane stopping by the house, she'd go quiet for a second, and then say, "That Dane's too comfortable in your house when you're away, love." I laughed it off, every single time. Mum's just being mum, I told myself. Over the last 4 months before everything blew up, things started shifting. Small things. Dane got evasive about the books. I'd ask him to send through the quarterly accounts, and he'd say, "Yeah, mate, I'll send them through the Sarvo." Then nothing. I'd follow up 2 days later from a hotel room in Singapore, and he'd say the accountant was behind. I was exhausted. Back-to-back Perth to Singapore to London rotations, 14-hour flights, 4-hour layovers, sleeping in crew hotels that all smell the same. I let it slide. Megan started pulling away too. She stopped picking me up from Perth Airport. 5 years she'd been there at arrivals with a coffee. Then suddenly it was, "Sorry, babe, I had a late client." She changed her phone passcode. When I asked about it, she said she was just stressed with work. I believed her, because why wouldn't I? Then one afternoon I got a text from Brooke. She was a uni student who worked part-time at the office. Nice kid, always reliable. The message said, "Hey, just wanted to say I think you're doing a great job with the business. Don't let anyone tell you different." I stared at that text for a full minute. It felt like someone trying to warn me about something without actually saying it. But I was boarding a flight to Doha in 20 minutes, so I put my phone away and forgot about it. I landed at Perth Airport on a Tuesday morning after a 72-hour rotation. My eyes were dry, my back was wrecked. I turned my phone off airplane mode, and that's when the first grenade went off. A voicemail from Priya that started with, "Callum, don't go home yet. We need to talk first." I called Priya back before I even left the terminal. She picked up on the first ring and said, "Meet me at that cafe on Great Eastern Highway. The one near the Avis counter. Don't go home first." Her voice was steady but tight. Priya doesn't rattle easy. She's been flying for 16 years. I've seen her handle a medical emergency at 40,000 feet without raising her pulse. So when she sounded like that, I listened. I got there in 12 minutes. She was already sitting in the corner booth with a flat white she hadn't touched. She didn't do small talk. She just said, 2 weeks ago I went to that tourism networking thing at Crown Towers on behalf of Westbound. Dane was there. She told me she'd stepped onto the terrace for some air. It was loud inside. Too many people in suits pretending to care about each other's businesses. She leaned against the railing, and that's when she heard Dane. He was maybe 10 feet away, phone pressed to his ear, laughing. Not a nervous laugh, a confident one. The kind of laugh you do when you think you've already won. Priya pulled out her phone and opened the Notes app. She'd typed the exact words that same night. Time-stamped. 11:14 p.m. She turned the screen toward me, and I read it. She's mine now. And once I push him out, so is the business. Callum doesn't read a single line. He's a trolley pusher who signs checks. I read it 3 times. Priya said there was a woman's voice on the other end of the call. Affectionate. Familiar. Not some stranger making polite conversation. This was someone who knew him. Priya didn't confront Dane that night. She said she wanted to wait until I landed so she could tell me face to face. I sat there in silence for probably a full minute. The cafe noise faded out. Then I asked one question. Was the woman Megan? Priya looked at me with this expression that was half pity and half anger. She said she didn't know for certain, but the tone was intimate. I paid for her coffee. Then I got in my car and drove straight to the Subiaco office instead of going home. It was 6:40 in the morning. Nobody would be there for at least 2 hours. I used my key, walked through the front door, and sat down at Dane's desk. The filing cabinet was next to the window. The one Dane always said was, "Just old client stuff. Don't worry about it." I opened the second drawer. Inside, I found 2 things that rearranged my entire life. The first was a lease agreement for a rental apartment on Albany Highway in Victoria Park. 2 names on the signature line. Dane Harrington, Megan Cross, dated 3 months earlier. The second was a Westpac statement showing a transfer of $18,500 from the Westbound Travel Partnership account to an account ending in 4471, an account I had never seen before. I photographed both documents. Then I closed the drawer, locked it, and sat in the dark office until I heard the front door open at 8:45. Brooke walked in first. She saw me and froze for half a second. Then she just nodded, like she understood. Dane strolled in at 9:10, jacket slung over one arm, coffee in the other hand, grinning like nothing in the world could touch him. "Oh, mate, didn't know you were back already. Good flight?" I looked at him. "Yeah, smooth landing. Hey, I was going through the cabinet. The lease for that Victoria Park place, is that a client's?" He paused, just for a second. A tiny shift in his posture, weight moving from one foot to the other. "What? Oh, yeah, that's a client file. Got mixed in. I'll sort it." "Right. And the Westpac transfer for 18.5 to an account ending in 4471? That a client thing too?" Mate, you know I handle the financials day to day. Don't stress about it. I'll walk you through everything at the end of the quarter. Sure. No worries. End of quarter. I picked up my bag and walked out. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't clench my fists. I got in my car and I drove 90 minutes south to Mandurah. My mom opened the door and I sat at her kitchen table and said 3 words. You were right. She didn't say I told you so. She just put the kettle on. I slept in my old bedroom that night, the one with the faded Fremantle Dockers poster still tacked to the wall. The next morning, I called the one person I trusted with numbers, my mate Lachlan. He's 35, runs a small accounting firm in Fremantle. We played indoor cricket together for 6 years. I gave him login access to the Westbound Zero account and the Westpac business banking portal. He cleared his entire Friday afternoon and started pulling every transaction from the last 12 months. Lachlan called me at 9 that Friday night. He didn't say hello. He just said, Cal, it's not 18,000. It's 74. And it goes straight to the flat he shares with your fiancé. $74,200. That's what Lachlan found when he pulled every transaction from the last 11 months. Dane had been siphoning it out of the Westbound Travel Partnership account in chunks, disguised as supplier payments and marketing expenses. Payments to vendors that didn't exist. Every dollar routed into a joint account held by Dane and Megan at a completely different bank branch. Lachlan laid it out on a spreadsheet with color-coded columns. Red for fraudulent. There was a lot of red. But it got worse. The Victoria Park lease was dated 3 months back, sure, except Lachlan dug into the business email. Dane had been using the company Gmail to register utility accounts for that flat. Power, internet, water. The bills showed occupancy going back at least 7 months. They'd been playing house for over half a year while I was somewhere over the Indian Ocean serving business class passengers their second gin and tonic. I went home that weekend, not to stay, to collect things. Megan was at her clinic. I picked up the iPad from the kitchen bench, the one we shared for streaming. She'd forgotten to log out of her messages. I didn't have to scroll far. Dane had sent her a text that read, "He'll never check. He doesn't even open the statements." Megan replied with 3 laughing emojis. In another thread, he called me the ATM with wings. She thought that was hilarious, too. I screenshotted everything. 46 messages, dates, times, all of it. Then I put the iPad back exactly where I found it and drove back to Mandurah. Priya came through with a signed written statement, dated, detailed, referencing the exact timestamp from her phone notes the night of the Crown Towers event. She printed it, signed it in blue ink, and handed it to me in a clear plastic sleeve, like she'd done this before. She hadn't. She was just thorough. Brooke confirmed what I'd already suspected. She told me quietly over coffee in Northbridge that Dane had been introducing himself to new clients as the founder. When they asked about me, he'd say I was a silent investor who doesn't really do much. One client had pushed back and asked why my name was on the partnership registration. Dane laughed it off and changed the subject. Brooke said she wanted to tell me sooner, but was scared of losing her job. While I was building the file, Dane kept digging his own grave. He told a major corporate client that I was stepping back from the business and that all future contracts should go through him exclusively. The client, a logistics company out in Welshpool, got confused because they dealt with me directly on their last group booking. They emailed me. I saved it. Megan started talking about postponing the wedding. She said it was cost concerns. I knew the real reason. She was already living with someone else 3 days a week. I played along. Told her, yeah, we could push it to next year. No rush. I needed time, and she gave it to me without realizing what she was giving. Then Dane filed paperwork to add his cousin as a part-time employee. Another phantom role. Another way to bleed the account dry. Lachlan flagged it the same day it hit the zero system. He's accelerating, Lachlan said. Whatever you're going to do it soon. I engaged a commercial litigation solicitor named Sarah Chen. Her firm was in the Perth CBD, 5 minutes walk from the magistrate's court precinct. I sat across from her desk with a manila folder 2 inches thick, bank records, the lease, 46 text screenshots, Priya's witness statement, the client emails, the phantom vendor list. Sarah read through everything in silence for about 20 minutes. Then she looked up and said, "This is clean. We can move." She laid out a two-pronged approach. First, a formal partnership dissolution notice under the Partnership Act 1895. Second, a fraud referral to the WA Police Financial Crime Squad. She also advised a restraining notice on the business accounts to stop Dane from draining what was left. I signed everything that week. Priya wasn't done either. She connected me with a contact at Tourism WA who pulled credit card records. Dane had charged a $620 dinner at Wildflower Restaurant to the business card, listed it as client entertainment. The booking was a table for two under the name Dane and Megan. Priya looked me in the eye and said, "You carried that business from 30,000 feet. Don't let him take it from you on the ground." The process server found Dane at the Subiaco office on a Wednesday morning. He was mid-call with a client when the envelope hit his desk. I wasn't there to see his face, but Brooke was. She said the color drained out of him like someone had pulled a plug. Dane called 40 minutes after the envelope hit his desk. I was sitting in Lachlan's office in Fremantle. Lachlan held up one finger and pointed at my phone. Single-party consent is legal in Western Australia. I hit record and answered. "What the hell is this? A dissolution notice? A fraud referral? Are you out of your mind?" His voice was shaking. Not with sadness, with fury. Like I was the one who'd done something wrong. $74,200, Dane. 11 months of fake invoices. A flat in Victoria Park with my fiancé. You want to keep going? Or do you want to listen? That money was operational. I can explain every cent. You can't. Lachlan already mapped it. Every transfer, every phantom vendor, every dollar into your joint account. And mate, I've got the texts. The ATM with wings. That was a good one. Long silence. I could hear him breathing. Then his voice dropped. Softer now. The charm switching on like a tap. "Cal, we can sort this out between us. We don't need courts. You told my clients I was a trolley pusher. You slept with my fiancé. You stole my money and called it marketing. We're well past sorting it out between us." I hung up. Lachlan looked at me and said, "That recording is gold." I saved it in 3 places. Sarah Chen filed the dissolution with the court that same week. WA police opened an investigation based on the fraud referral. Dane's access to the business accounts was frozen within 72 hours. He couldn't move a cent. For the first time in 11 months, the money was safe. It took 2 weeks for Dane's solicitor to reach out. The proposal was predictable. Dane would surrender his 50% share in exchange for me dropping the civil claim. Sarah countered. We'd buy out Dane's equity at fair market value, minus the $74,200 in documented theft. When you ran the numbers, that meant Dane walked away with almost nothing after his own legal costs ate through what was left. The fraud investigation stayed open regardless. That wasn't mine to drop, even if I wanted to. He signed. The fallout moved fast. Perth's tourism network is smaller than people think. Word got around Subiaco's business community inside a week. 2 of Westbound's largest clients, a mining company in West Perth and a logistics firm in Welshpool, sent me personal emails of support. One of them wrote, "We always knew you were the one making it work, Callum." That one I read twice. Dane lost the business. He lost his reputation. He lost most of our mutual friends. Last I heard, he was doing admin work for a mate's removalist company in Midland. I don't feel good about that. I don't feel bad about it either. Megan was named in the financial investigation as a co-beneficiary of the siphoned funds. The joint account, the lease, the utility bills. All of it had her name on it. She moved out of the Victoria Park flat and back to her parents' house in Joondalup. Brooke stayed on. She told me over coffee one afternoon that she'd nearly quit 3 times because of how Dane spoke about me behind my back. Every time you flew out, he'd roll his eyes and say he was the one keeping the lights on, she said. It made me sick. Priya got promoted to purser on my regular route. When I tried to thank her, she waved me off. I just told the truth. That's literally the minimum. Megan showed up at my mum's house in Mandurah on a Saturday afternoon. I heard the knock and opened the door, and there she was, crying. She said Dane manipulated her, that it started when she was lonely during my long rotations, that she never meant for it to go this far. I stood in the doorway and I listened. I didn't yell. I didn't slam the door. I just said, I believe that you're sorry, Meg, but you co-signed a lease with him. You laughed at the nickname. That's not manipulation. That's a choice. And I'm making mine. I handed her the engagement ring in its original box. She left. Mum made me a cup of tea and didn't say a word. I renamed the business Southern Cross Travel and registered it as a sole proprietorship. Lachlan came on as a contracted financial manager, handling the books between my flights. We moved to a smaller space on Bagot Road, still Subiaco, lower overheads. I restructured the whole service model around what had always made the business viable in the first place. My airline connections, premium group packages, direct relationships. Within 3 months, revenue was up 12%. I bought a 1-bedroom flat in Cottesloe, walking distance from the beach. I started running along the coast in the mornings before early flights. Dane called me a trolley pusher. And yeah, I push a trolley at 37,000 feet, and I'm damn good at it. But I also read every receipt, saved every statement, and kept every record he assumed I'd never open. The betrayal nearly broke me, but the evidence was all mine. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. The person they underestimate is always the most dangerous one in the room. And I was never the silent partner. I was the patient one.